don't work with your family. That's what a lot of people told me, but honestly, I've had a different experience. I recently sat down with my dad and co-founder, Kyle Sisson, to talk about what it's been like building Peluva together. Not just as business partners, but as a father and son. We talked about just building a shoe that's so unconventional and so new, and the challenges of that, to really just dealing with the family dynamics in business and what it's like, me working with someone who's been a role model and him working with his son and expectations and all these different things. So we had a really great conversation. It's a long conversation. It talks about foot health, so like I said, family and all the things in between. So if you're interested in that, I think you'll enjoy this video. So Dad, you've been wearing 5-toed shoes for pretty much as long as I can remember. Yeah. What was really the aha moment for you when you said, this is the optimal shoe?
Well, I first came across a 5-toed shoe in about 2007, and it was a little company that a lot of people know about. It was the Vibram company, and they made a very interesting product, and I had been a big fan of minimalist shoes, just because I started my running career in minimalist shoes, and then the next thing you know, there's a whole generation of thick, padded cushion footwear, whether it was running shoes or training shoes or street shoes. Everything seemed to be getting thicker and thicker, and I've always been a fan of Barefoot. I've always been a fan of being able to have the feeling of the ground underneath me, and literally to understand the tilt and the texture and the temperature of the ground underneath. And so when these initial gloves for feet came out, I was a big advocate. I loved it. Over the years, as I accumulated more and more of these shoes, I started to think, well, these guys ought to be making like other styles, and they ought to be making more colors, and they ought to be making uppers a little bit higher, and they ought to be making shoes that had a little bit more cushion and padding in them, so that if I walked 5 or 10 miles on concrete or pavement, I wouldn't get a bone bruise, and I would be able to sort of meld the feeling of Barefoot with the comfort of a shoe that allowed my toes to articulate, but also allowed me to feel like I was walking, say, barefoot on a putting green.
Yeah. So
with the years passing and my accumulating these shoes, I realized that they weren't, this company wasn't able to adjust the way I felt with my knowledge as being a runner, as being a fitness enthusiast, as being the author of books on fitness and strength and health and how the body is coordinates. I thought, this is a prime opportunity to enter the marketplace with a shoe that I would say optimizes foot health, that lets your foot do what your foot wants to do. My goal was to develop an optimal shoe, and the optimal shoe in my mind was what we've arrived at here in terms of Peluva. In all, I think we've created what I would say is the optimal shoe for letting the foot do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, so it's so funny. I remember almost 20 years ago when you started writing Mark's Daily Apple and you were blogging about health and fitness, we would get packages of shoes just sent to our house, right?
Yeah.
Early minimalist shoes. And people wanted you to try the shoes out, right? It's all these shoes, so you really had the opportunity to try all these out.
Yeah.
And I got to try some of them as well. So you kept going back to the individual toe articulation. So
Yeah.
what did you feel like was so important about that? Because a lot of things that we say about Peluva, which is, it's allows your toes to spread out, it's zero drop, you can feel the ground. A lot of other minimalist shoes also tout those benefits. How important is that, do you feel like, and why was that so important to
It's great because in those early days, I got all kinds of wide, thin, flat, flexible footwear sent to me. And what I realized early on was that, first of all, sometimes they were too thin, and that thinness would not protect your feet against sharp stones if you're running or even walking or hiking or whatever off-road. They did allow for some amount of toe splay, and you and I recognized early on that toe splay is a critical component of foot function, and allowing every toe of the foot to have a say in how that gait is performed. But most importantly, the big toe. The big toe, the great toe, in many, many shoes tends to be cramped over years. So if that's the foot, the great toe is then squished against the other toes, causing the metatarsals to sort of crumple up there, cutting off the circulation throughout the plantar fascia area. This manifests itself in all sorts of problems with many people, including bunions, because of the toes are too cramped together. Now, over decades, most people have bad feet. I mean, we see this all the time now. It's amazing the number of people who complain that their feet are, if not painful, just misshapen. It became very clear early on that you must have 5 individual toe boxes. Just walking in a 5-toed shoe with a natural splay will allow the foot to regain its natural function. We call it relax, realign, and strengthen. And so in my mind, it's absolutely essential that everybody have at least one pair of a 5-toed shoe that they can wear at the gym, they can wear it when they're walking out about town, to passively strengthen and train those feet so that you reclaim that natural foot strength and resilience.
Yeah, just get that assisted splay, right? And like you said about toe spacers, a lot of people will put these on. It's great. The passive thing we totally are on board with, but also putting those toes through a range of motion while moving, right? A lot of people don't actually walk in toe spacers.
Right.
Don't get to use the range of motion of the toe that's in this new position.
Exactly. So while they're splayed, you keep them splayed, and then you're able to use them in a way that, and again, talking about the big toe, the great toe, you know, one thing that we've, in doing our research, we've recognized that bodybuilders have known this for a long time. The term they use is great toe, great ass. And what that means is in order to build the glutes, you have to involve the kinetic chain all the way down to the end of the big toe. And the big toe has to be out, and it has to be planted, and it has to initiate a lot of the grounding. The great toe needs to be doing its thing independently, along with the other toes, but certainly independently of a mitten, you know, or being encased, which is why when you go to the gym, you see a lot of really good bodybuilders take their shoes off. They would rather lift 1,000 pounds barefoot than with shoes on. One of the things that we've noticed a lot with people who go to the gym and train in Peluvas is they're commenting, they're engaging their glute more because the big toe is activated. Great toe, great ass. It's really interesting how the foot and the grounding of the foot in that fully splayed operational mode is so essential to performing optimally in the gym.
One of the things I find so interesting is when you start to wear Peluvas, or you just start to go barefoot more, you start to notice how your feet develop maybe differently than they had before, right? And I started wearing minimalist shoes, I guess, you know, on and off when you were wearing them, but I still like to wear conventional shoes as well. You know, your grandson, my nephew, Kai, we look at his feet and it's incredible to see what they look like, right? He runs around barefoot all the time. He never wears shoes. In fact, he doesn't fit into shoes at this point, conventional shoes, because his feet are growing naturally. For someone like him, who's developing in this natural environment, he needs a shoe like Peluva. He's not going to fit into conventional shoes.
He's going to hate it.
And it's going to be painful. And it's so sad to see that a lot of these kids, while their bones are still soft and the cartilage is soft, we're forming their feet in a way with conventional shoes that it's not supposed to be like, right?
You're right. So many kids who start to develop great foot structure by going barefoot get compromised because the mom says, oh, aren't these cute little Mary Janes or cute little, you know, sneakers or whatever they're putting them in. You know, so what we're doing with Peluva is we're getting those people when they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and they're starting to recognize that they've kind of gone down a path of foot dysfunction, brought on by the very shoes they were wearing, and that includes, by the way, high-tech running shoes that do the same thing. They scrunch your feet together, and then they take this, and we're talking mostly about the toe splay, but we've sort of gone off track. But so much of what happens with running shoes is the thickness, the cushion that the running community thinks is helping them with their shock absorption, but is actually just postponing it's offsetting the foot's natural tendency to absorb so much of the shock by itself. Like runners get injured at a higher percentage than NFL players. That just blows my mind.
Right.
50% of all runners are injured at some point. 25%, at any one point in time, 25% of all the runners in the country are injured. Right. That's just like if you get injured in anything, that's your body telling you you're doing it wrong. Right. At the bottom of it is this shoe that people have purchased that allows them to continue with bad form to put miles in. Yeah. So we see that in the athletic footwear, we see that, and then in fashion footwear, women wearing high heels, and by the way, they look great, but at some point, they're compromising foot health. I think we have an answer to that. Like you can fix your feet, but you have to start by taking care of your feet, walking barefoot as much as you can, doing foot exercises, toe space, or whatever it is. And I would say wear Peluvas as often as you can.
Yeah, so one of the things that obviously a lot of people, they look at Peluvas, they're so different from anything they've seen before, right? And so that can be sort of I don't know if I'm ready to jump into that, right? And it's not traditional, say, traditional fashion norms that people are used to, right? What we're doing, though, is we're going with a trend, not a trend, but we're going with something that right now is, health is fashionable. Mm-hmm. Wellness is fashionable. These things have to become fashionable if we're going to, continue to be healthy and enjoy life. And it's sort of where we're all trending as a society. Right. So how did you feel about when we set out to start designing this, how it would sort of maybe clash with
fashion? No, that was, I think, my number one concern was, I knew that we would make a comfortable shoe, the most comfortable shoe you've ever worn. Right. I knew we'd make a functional shoe, one that I could back up with science. Like when you wear this shoe and you walk, you are strengthening your feet, you're increasing your mobility, you're increasing your agility, you're increasing your balance, you're improving your resilience. All of those things I knew we could get past. It was the fashion thing that most concerned me. Like are people going to be okay with a five-toed shoe? Yeah. And the designs that we've come up with in just the short time that we've been on the market blow me away. They're like this is the beauty of collaboration, of working together with because I couldn't envision a shoe that was as good looking as we have right now, and I know we continue to improve on that. We just need to convince people to try them the first time, wear them, whatever they're doing throughout their day or at the gym or whatever. Wear them a couple of times, and then they have that aha moment, like, oh my God, these feel great. They're the most comfortable shoe I've ever worn. Right. My feet feel better. My back doesn't hurt as much, and they look great. I mean, I can mix and match with outfits and put them together with a.
And the thing is, they're really, it's so kind of ironic for people to say, whoa, those are crazy or something like that, because they're really not. This is actually
the least crazy.
They're the least crazy, right? Like every other shoe is crazy when you think about it. So we really just need to help people understand and see and sort of shift the way they see. It really is. It's a beautiful organic form that I think we can really get back to. And people have forever been able to embrace the beauty in just the natural human form.
Yeah. Look, I mean, UGG boots were named because they were not the most attractive boot. They became a huge rage, and they're a very successful company. Birkenstock sandal continues to be growing at a huge rate, and they're a sandal. Crocs, go figure, but Crocs took off, despite the fact that they were perceived by very many as butt ugly. Right. So I think the perception of beauty is in not just the eye of the beholder, but also in the critical mass of people wearing them and accepting it as, okay, this is not just comfortable and utilitarian, but now I feel like I'm part of a movement that is cutting edge, that is leading the way toward better health, and it's a fashionable shoe.
Yeah. So switching gears, people ask me all the time, what's it like working with your family? What's it like working with your dad? Or they'll have a story, like, oh, I worked with my family. It was terrible. Yeah. It ruined our relationship. We never got along.
To which I respond, it's the best experience ever. When you approached me, 4 or 5 years ago, and you told me about this idea that you had. Well, obviously, I knew you'd had the idea forever, and asked me to get involved. I couldn't have been happier. It was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. Always wanted to work with you. I've always admired you and been so inspired by everything that you've done. So for me, I was like, this is such an exciting opportunity. It's so cool that I get to work with my dad, and I hope it goes well. This is something that I see as a multi-generational sort of, we are changing the world, right? We're changing health in the world together, and it's something that you've done before, with everything, with your books, with Primal Kitchen, and now I get to be a part of it with you with Peluva. And so I'm just, I love working with you, and I'm interested to hear your experience. I hope you've had a similar experience.
100%. I think every father has sort of a dream to work with his children. And in our case, I think I'd asked you a while back about the vitamin company, that I used to have. Were you interested in joining me in that? And you said, nah, Dad, I'm good. I'm going to be a billionaire. Don't worry about it. You remember that?
I mean, I think it is interesting, right? Because I think part of your history is I have so much respect of sort of your humble beginnings to what you've gotten to, and I was like, I would love to have that too. And then at a certain point I recognized, I get to start with a little bit of a head start, so I need to figure out how am I going to make the most of this, and it's not just about me, it's about our entire family and the legacy and all this stuff. And then it became less important to me to make a name for myself, and more important to say, like, okay, let's do this as a family. And I really wanted to work with you.
No, I appreciate that. And so that for me, when this opportunity became real to me, like after I put all the pieces together, I said, this is what I want to do, and I want Kyle to do it with me. There was, I had zero hesitations. Like, I really wanted to work with you, and I wanted us to do this together. I wanted this to be a growth opportunity for you, and put you in a position of a little bit of discomfort, because I didn't want to just mentor you like, oh, do this and do that, and here's how you do this. And my confidence in you being able to find a solution to problems, you've done nothing but exceed my expectations. You're very adept at that. You're very thoughtful and mindful about what needs to be done. I think that the two of us work together even better because you're more organized, and I'm more sort of the creative, like, fly off the handle thought leader or whatever. But you keep things on track and you keep things organized, and that's what every sort of creative, certainly every creative fashion brand has, that sort of two-factor approach where somebody's got to be in charge of the books and the organization and getting things done, and the other is like, okay, let's do this. I got a wild-ass dream. Let's get this done. So it's great to have the conversations that, as you say, are not just about the business, but sometimes they of necessity have to segue into philosophy. And like what do we, not just the product, but what is the message? What is the lifestyle we're conveying? What is the long-term outcome of what major success looks like for Peluva? And that becomes a legacy discussion. Like, what do I want for the legacy versus what do you have in mind for a legacy, and kind of matching those up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we talked about, because the product is so near and dear to your heart and to my heart. It's something that's so, it's so unique, but it's not just a product. Like, it really has, it's revolutionary in a way, in the way that people see it and the way their reactions to it, right? It's so polarizing, and it's not an easy thing to explain this to people and to bring this message to people, but it is so important. And when you make a product and you start to look at all the things that it can do and that it does do, and you have these conversations with other people and you talk to them and you realize, oh my gosh, everyone has these problems. This is something that so many people deal with, and maybe not everyone necessarily talks about it, to take on this sort of this goal of really helping people heal their feet and helping people be the best versions of themselves. You know, I think it's so powerful, and it makes me really want to pursue this for a long time, and you know, make it something that we as a family and, you know, my children hopefully want to pursue that as well, and just have it something that we can, you know, bring to the world to make it better.
You know, I feel like this is a big responsibility. And the reason I say that is I felt for a long time that if we don't do this, I don't think anyone's going to. It's such a perfect storm of opportunity, of necessity, of creativity, of organization, timing, in the sense of the world being more open to health and more open to foot health.
Right.
And so the responsibility is for us to get this message out there and to have more and more people understand the connection they have with Earth, the importance that foot health has. You know, we'll talk to Courtney Conley, and she'll say, you know, the number one marker for old people and decrepitness or mortality isn't grip strength, isn't VO2 max, it's toe strength.
Right.
You know, you get up in the middle of the night and you don't have toe strength, and you lose your balance, and you fall, and you break a hip, and you spend time in the hospital, and you pass away. And it's not like a unique story. That happens hundreds of thousands of times a year.
Yeah.
So the responsibility, which I feel is, I embrace it. I take it on, not just willingly, but excitedly.
Yeah.
But it is a responsibility to show the world the benefits of foot health and what's possible if you can reclaim that mobility and strength and resilience by wearing a shoe that's comfortable all the time and that fits with every outfit and every lifestyle occasion. Yeah. You know, it's clear to me we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'm willing to take it on, and however long it takes to get this message across, I'm willing to do that. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Especially, you know, and we've talked about this before, but the cool thing is that we are coming from two different generations, right? And so you have all your friends who have totally messed up feet from 60 years of shoes, right? And whether it's, you know, work shoes and they're wearing just, you know, all the shoes.
yeah.
And then I have my friends who I'm really just starting to see, like you can see that I'll give them a pair of Peluvas and they're like, oh, I can't really get my toes in, right? Or their toes are fighting. They're like, it pulls my toe, it spreads my toes a little too much. I'm like, your toes should be able to spread way past.
Yeah. You know what we say, right?
Yeah,
if your
exactly.
if your toes slide right into these, you want these shoes. If your toes don't slide right into these, you need these shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's great because there's sort of a proactive approach and then sort of like a, you know, reactive, rehabilitating approach to it. And, you know, we need to reach both of those groups, right? And even for someone like Kai, who's just a toddler, right? We even need to eventually support those people, like kids who, before they get to the point where they're already having this foot pain and they have these sort of developmental issues, we need to help that out. So I love that we have perspective on these different eras of life, really.
I agree. We got a lot of work to do. We should probably get to work.
let's do it.
Okay.